Hello! So, the best piece of gear. What is it? It's the thing that makes musical tasks seem so easy for some people. It's a powerful mental model in your brain, a super efficient cognitive strategy for dealing with music. It's what annoyingly talented people are using, and they might not even know that they're using it or that it's unusual or special in any way. And the other thing is, you don't have to be born with it. I definitely was not. All my life, I've been around other musicians who are bizarrely good at things that no matter how much I practice, I don't ever seem to get much better at. But it's not because I wasn't practicing enough. It's because the way my brain was treating music, the mental model I was using, was just a lot crappier than the one they were using. About a year ago, I was talking to a friend of mine, and we had done a number of group score studies together. And I was saying to him, I was like, man, I'm amazed. Like, you're such a good score reader. Like you're reading alto clef and tenor clef and all this stuff. And he was like, I'm actually a terrible score reader. He says his secret is that when he hears music without any effort at all, he just sees like a mental visual keyboard imagined in front of him. And when he hears music, he sees all the notes being played on the keyboard. And he said, so that's my superpower. And he also said that he doesn't have perfect pitch. He may, use the he may be visualizing the wrong key, but as soon as someone tells him or he learns what the key is, he can effortlessly just like reorient the keyboard in the correct key. So as he hears the music, it's all in the right place. So that was amazing and kind of annoying that there are people in the world who have these miraculous abilities that make life so much easier for them. Well, so not long after that, I discovered this book, this right here called Becoming Talented, written by Isador Miller. And in this book, he describes that exact same talent that my friend described. And he describes many others like it. And that you can actually develop these through practice. It's not something you have to be born with. And in fact, Isador believes that, a lot of people kind of by chance come across these abilities as children. When they're learning music, when they're learning to read, when they're playing an instrument, you have to come up with ways to kind of understand all these things that you're doing. And by accident, they fall into these what turn out to be extremely efficient methods of kind of cognitively understanding and processing all this musical information. And others may not be so lucky, and so they have basically less efficient strategies. And of course, some people may be lucky and they have a teacher who teaches them these types of strategies. But nevertheless, these are things that you don't have to be born with. It's just some people fall on them by accident as children, or they're taught them by somebody. But as adults, later in life, we can also, practice and build these same skills. So I read the book, and then I started taking private lessons with Isador. And that was almost a year now I've been taking lessons with him. And it has really helped me increase, my so-called natural talent. I can learn songs faster. I can remember them much better. Now that I'm like seeing this keyboard, like everything is in this kind of concrete visual setting in my mind. I can figure out music by ear much faster and more accurately. I can identify chords, when I'm jamming with a group and maybe they say like, here are the chords of this song, but I'm kind of forgetting. and then, they shift, and I'm like, I know what that chord is. I can, I just go right to it. I know what it is. It's made improvising a lot more fun. I mean, I used to just kind of have all these licks, and I just kind of unload licks, and now I'm much more loose. I can just kind of, think in my mind a sound or a phrase that's kind of coming to me as the music's going by, and I just play that. And I can also sight read a lot better now. So Isador, actually, just as an aside, he learned a lot of these techniques from a teacher, this woman named Marianne Plager. And she was in turn a student of Nadia Boulanger. And Nadia Boulanger is this, it's like every amazing musician of the 20th century, seemingly studied with Nadia Boulanger in France. I mean, Quincy Jones studied with her. You just like see this name pop up a lot. So it's just kind of a cool family tree. Kind of getting these techniques from way back. So let's look at a couple of examples of what I'm talking about. So the most core key concept is this keyboard visualization that my friend has and that I've been talking about a little bit. So whenever you are interacting with music, you should always be visualizing it on a piano keyboard, whether you're hearing it, whether you're playing it, whether you're reading it on paper. You want to always be visualizing. And at first, this takes a lot of work and a lot of practice, but over time, it will just start to happen automatically, amazingly enough. I'm not quite, all the way there yet, but it really has started to happen. And I've heard from Isador that like you can't even not do it after you've developed this. Like you just automatically see stuff on an imagined keyboard. So one of the exercises in Isador's book that I believe he learned from Marianne is called interval tracking. And we can just kind of quickly look at what this involves and kind of get a sense of some of these exercises that you can start practicing to develop this skill. So in interval tracking, we're going to use notation paper, but we're not going to pick a clef. We don't care if it's treble clef, bass clef. We're going to get away from just, like if you had treble clef, you have to learn what all these notes are, and in bass clef, they're all different, and you have to learn the names of those. We're going to get away from that. We're just going to focus on intervals. So when we look at notes on score paper or on a score, we are mostly just looking at the intervals, and in our mind, we're tracking the interval jumps on the keyboard as we read it. And with this practice, we're just going to do white notes for now. So this is just white notes. We're going to go, we could imagine in our visual keyboard, we have C to D to E, F, G, A, B, C. We're just going to do those white notes. We're also not going to call them those notes. We're going to use solfege, because when we're speaking and singing notes, it's just a lot more efficient to use solfege. Most people know these notes are, the song do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, right? So we're going to, instead of saying T, we're going to say C, which is how they do it in France. And this is how I've been learning it, so it'll just be easier for me to do it this way. Our first here is do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, and then we arrive back at do again, do. And this is always going to be do, by the way. If you say do, or if you read do, or if you're referring to do, it's always going to be this pitch. And re is always going to be this pitch. That's what's called fixed do. So that's just how we're going to do it. So with interval tracking, we can start with practicing the smallest interval. Let's just do seconds. So we can write anywhere on this staff paper, and we're just going to make a little note. And then we're either going to go up or down a second. So let's go up a second. And then let's go up another second, and then down a second, back up a second, then down a second, down another second, and then back up a second. Okay? So because we don't have a clef here, we can just decide whatever note we want this first one to be, and then we're going to imagine in our mind going up and down the keyboard in our mind. So let's say this first note is Do. Well, if we go up the white keys, up a second, that's going to be Re. If we go up a second from Re is Mi. Now if we go down, it looks like I wrote a third. So let me fix that. Just get rid of that. Okay, so we're here on Mi, and then we're going to come down a second, and that'll be Re, and then down a second, and that's Do, where we started, same as here. And then we come down another second, and that's Si, and then up a second, back to Do. Now, while we're doing that, while we're naming those intervals, we're always imagining those notes on this keyboard. So we're literally like picturing these notes as we go up and down the keyboard, just to kind of start to synchronize, to unify these concepts in our mind so that when we interact with music, we're always going back to that visualization. So this doesn't have to be Do. We could say, let's try it from Fa, right? So this first note is Fa. Well, we go up a step from Fa, and that's Sol, and then up a second, an interval of a second, and we're at Si, the solfege C. So So if we start at Fa, see, I wasn't visualizing. Start at Fa, we go up a second, Sol, and up another second, La. Okay, so if we want to make this a little harder, we could start singing these notes. So we could say we're doing Fa, kind of give ourselves the sound of Fa major. And we say, here's Fa, Fa, Fa. So when we go up, we go Fa, Sol, La. Down a second, Sol, Fa, Mi, Fa. And when I'm singing that, I am visualizing the keyboard. And so you don't have to do this, obviously, with score paper. You can do this, you can just imagine these types of intervals, do these types of exercises, when you're making dinner or you're driving. You can just imagine that keyboard, and you can think like, all right, I'm going to go up and down, and I'm going to start on Fa, and I'm going to stay in seconds. If you have the ear, if you can sing it already, if you kind of can hear your way through the key, you could sing the notes. But you can also just say the note names and then later develop the ear part of it. And then, of course, you can start experimenting with other intervals. So we could try thirds next. Now, when you are going up in intervals, the largest interval is the one that you're focused on, the one that you're practicing, but you can use any interval that's smaller than that. So we can use thirds and seconds. So let's say we start here. Okay, and then we're going to go up a third, and up a third, and then we'll go down a second, and then down a third, and then down a second. So let's say that this is La. Right? So if we're now imagining on our keyboard La. If we go up a third, that's 2 white notes. So we're coming up to Do. So the next one we come up to is Mi. And then we come down a second from Mi, and we're on Re. And we come down a third now from Re, and we're on Si. And then we come down a second from Si, and we're back to La. Okay? And then we could choose a different note here. And also when you're like driving and stuff, you can kind of do these sequences. You can do like up a third, down a second, up a third, down a second, up a third, down a second. And you could be just saying the names and always imagining the keyboard in your mind, or you could be singing the notes if you have that ability already. But you're always imagining that keyboard when you're doing this, and you can pick all these different intervals, and you start kind of seeing all of these relationships and understanding them better. So that's just kind of like the beginning of this. And Isador's book has, many more examples, and many other types of techniques to develop your ear, the pitch part of it, the rhythm, like how you can read rhythmic notation more efficiently, and it just becomes much easier to do it with his techniques. So yeah, check out Isador's book. Look up Marianne Plauger. She's working still, teaching. She's in Nashville. And I hope you find this helpful and, fun to play around with. And thanks so much for listening.